membership meeting. Okay, and I would like to let everybody know, first of all, that we will be recording this meeting tonight. We want to make sure for two reasons. The first reason is in case some notes are missed while Lori's taking the minutes. The second reason is at some point we will have this meeting up on YouTube. So if there are process of getting an Okra YouTube channel, and we will post certain things up there, so if people miss meetings, they'll be able to attend that. Okay, so that's the preliminary stuff. We're going to be doing this over Zoom and UHF. As Dan already said, if you're on both, make sure the one that you are using is the only one that is muted. Excuse me, that is not muted and is on. If you are using the UHF repeater, make sure you don't time out if you happen to be presenting. I'm going to do check-ins now over UHF. We will not be doing check-ins for the people on Zoom because I am also on Zoom and I've got everybody checked in already that I can see on the screen. So with that, let's open it up for check-ins. Suffix is Alpha through India. Please call now.
KI4REN. Dan, I did not get let in.
Yeah, this is Bruce, Bill. Sorry about that, but we cannot stop right now for that. We'll deal with that after the fact, but I do have you checked in. Any other Alpha through India, please call now. Okay, any J through R, Japan through Romeo, please call now.
Kilo Mike 4, Mike Bravo, Golf.
Okay, KM4MBG, gotcha, Jack. Any other J through R? Okay, any Sierra through Zulu, please call now.
November 2 X-ray Zulu Foxtrot.
Okay, Paul, and 2XZF. Any other Sierra through Zulu? Okay, anybody on UHF? Alpha through Zulu, please call now. Well, that's pretty quiet for the repeater. Good thing we've got a lot of people on Zoom. We've got a total of 18 people on Zoom tonight, so that's good. Let me just make a quick opening comment, and then Wilson has an announcement that he would like to share with everybody, and then we'll kick off the main part of the meeting. First of all, I'd like to welcome everybody to the February meeting. Secondly, this is the first time we're going to be doing this type of a presentation format. We want to be able to reach everybody in the club, whether they have the ability to join on Zoom, whether they have the ability to join on UHF, or if they don't have either, to be able to join as an audio conference on their cell phone. So we have people using all three of those different types of connectivity tonight to be able to join us. Also, being able to do a presentation where we actually have slides. If you're on Zoom, you'll be seeing the slides displayed as the various speakers are walking through their part of the presentation. And the slides, if you've already seen them, they were distributed yesterday afternoon about 5 o'clock, you'll see that it's really the talking points, and there'll be more information behind all of those slides. So as it goes from speaker to speaker and from slide to slide, you'll see that change. If you're on UHF or if you're dialed in for an audio conference, hopefully you can see the slides on your computer, or perhaps you've already printed them out so you can follow. One thing we will do is make a comment about changing the slide Lori will be changing the slides, so she's running the Zoom conference where the slides will be shared for everybody. And if you are a presenter, please say something like, next slide, please, just to make sure she will know that you're done with that slide and you're ready to go on to the next one. There's a lot of items that we want to cover tonight, and we want to make sure that we have time for everything, including the officers' reports, the open discussion at the end, where we'd like to receive some comments from folks about how this particular meeting went, and even if they don't have the comment at that time, then they can send them to us later on. With that, let me pass the control over to Wilson. Wilson is on Zoom, so those of you on UHF will still hear him because he's patching through, and he has a comment for everybody, and then we'll get this started. So, W4BOH, N1LN.
My son Christopher, this is W4BOH. My son Christopher brought home today 3 nice little displays, kind of tablet-sized displays, and 1 Raspberry Pi. These displays can be driven by HDMI from the Pi, and they're being donated to the Pi group for whatever use they can make. Too bad Aurora's not here, over. W4BOH.
Okay, W4BOH N1LN. For those of you that do not know, Aurora and Lori have been exchanging a couple of emails. So she said that she would not be able to attend tonight because she had a lot of stuff going on. So she wishes she could. She thought she might, but she's not able to. Okay, with that, let me turn this over to Lori, and she can kick off the opening comments for the team part of the focus discussion. So this is where we get kind of crazy here, where I've got to hand her the microphone. We tried 2 radios and that didn't work. So let me hand Lori the microphone, and the slide is up. No slide required. Okay, N1YXU, N1, hang. Okay, hang on a minute, we're getting there. Okay, for those of you that are on UHF or on video teleconferencing, move to slide 3, and here's Lori.
Good evening all, this is Lori, N1YXU, and it is really exciting to be part of this meeting tonight. I feel like we're kind of experimenting with this presentation method, and hopefully it is going to work, and I think it will. And you know, if not, we're going to have little bumps here and there, but we will get through it. What I would like to do tonight is give you a very brief introduction about what we're going to be learning about, the presenters that will be coming on in just a few minutes, and how this all came about. You remember that last month when we had the OCRA membership meeting, the new board was introduced, and many of the board members talked about what they wanted to focus on this year. Some of the main things were the club administration, membership engagement, and training. Tonight we're going to focus on the last 2, those being membership engagement and training. And as you'll see, the support of the entire club and the involvement of all of the members are really needed to make this a success. There are several areas that we can focus on for training and engagement, and if you think about the OCRA membership and how diverse we are with different backgrounds, interests, and expertise, that's a really broad scope. The board got together a couple of weeks ago, and after a lot of discussion, agreed on a team approach. And you might want to ask, well, why teams? Well, teams obviously allow multiple pieces of work to be done at the same time, and they will allow many of the talented members of our group to be involved in one team or in multiple teams. And obviously, teams are made up of many people, so that implies that in order for the teams to be successful, they need all of our support and involvement, like I've already said. Let's talk a little bit more specifically about what you will hear tonight. Tonight you will be introduced to 5 teams. Quickly, they are field day, program, technical training, operator training, and repeaters. There are a few additional teams that are still being developed, and they'll be shared with you shortly. Tonight, you're going to hear from each of the current team leads from the 5 groups that I just mentioned. The leads will give you a brief background, describe some of the focus of what their teams will do, talk about some of those planned goals, and then you're going to have the opportunity to ask questions, and probably most importantly, to volunteer to be a team member. So please just sit back and really take in all the information, and like I said, if you have any questions or you need things asked and answered, we will definitely have time to do that. And I believe I am turning this over to Dave. He is going to be going through the first team that will be discussed tonight, and that is Field Day. So W4SAR from N1YXU. And for those of you who are on UHF, please go to slide 4.
Thank you very much, Lori. And someone give me a thumbs up. I'm transmitting okay? We got it. Okay, super. All right. Well, we only have 10 minutes for each team to speak, so I'm not going to be stopping really to take any questions just now. We may fill that in towards the end. So I'm going to throw a lot of content and ideas at you. We have time to refine that in the coming weeks and months before we go to Field Day proper. And now the first thing we have to talk about is Field Day. Is it a contest or an emergency exercise? It actually is planned as an emergency exercise. The idea behind it is that we operate someplace where we set up a station for 24 hours or even longer under some conditions, and then operate, in our case, usually off the grid. It gives us practice in setting up a station in a remote area and operating off battery power or generator power for an extended period. And we're trying to contact as many other stations as we can during that time. However, it's very cleverly disguised as a contest. That has really gotten people involved in it throughout the United States and Canada, because when you get people competing with each other, they want to get those bragging rights and see what how they do compared to other stations, and compete with yourself, see if you can do better than you did the years before. So it is a pretty important exercise. We get familiarized with working remotely, being efficient in our communications, and it's a chance for us to experiment on what works and what doesn't out on the field. Now, Okra has a long history with Field Day. I think ever since the founding of this club around 1991-ish, 1990, we participated in Field Day. So has the Durham FM Association. We had separate teams operating on Field Day. And, we did fairly well in the rankings. We weren't at the bottom. We weren't near the top. And then one day, Dee approaches me from the DFMA and says, these clubs share a lot of members. What if we didn't have to worry about competing with each other or worrying which site to go to? What if we combine forces and do a joint Okra DFMA Field Day? Well, it made a huge difference, because once we started doing it, the synergy was just fantastic. We started shooting up the rankings. And for the past several years, past decade even, we've been ranking in the top 10 nationally. And we even got up to number 2 nationally. And that's probably about as high as we can get, because the Potomac Valley Radio Club really has us beat. We're never going to touch them. They have that huge operation which has dominated all this time. So we proved we can get as far up as we can by the traditional methods on Field Day. And then what happened? Then came the pandemic. That essentially shut down our field operations. And for that, the ARL did make an exception where we could start operating out of our homes, and they came up with kind of a solution to still keep the competitive element in there between all the long-time participating clubs and organizations that took part in Field Day. They started allowing us to work out of our homes. But what you could do, even though you worked out of your home, was declare that you had a club affiliation, and then they would do an aggregate of all the scores of all those homes or field stations, whatever that declared that affiliation, and scored using the aggregates. Not officially, but just to see where everything went. Well, guess what? We did it again. We came in number 2 nationally by doing the aggregates. It's fantastic. So we're going to move on to how can we work field day this year. Are we going to have a traditional field setup? It's beginning to look like we will. Are we going to do home stations? Yes, that can work for people who still are uncomfortable about getting out in the field. We keep hearing that we're turning the corner on this pandemic. We don't know just yet. It's getting better. Hopefully it'll be really good by field day. Now, what would really work probably is a hybrid situation where we're going to have a field day set up, but a lot of members are still going to be participating from the house. And guess what? If we have a real emergency occurring in this county, that's probably how it's going to work. We might be setting up a field station somewhere. We'll have somebody set up at EOC, but a lot of us are going to work out of our homes, particularly if it's something where we can't travel safely to the area. So a lot of us will work out of our homes. So the hybrid may work. And I think we could still, I'll verify this with the rules, we could still declare club affiliations and still submit an aggregate score for everybody while having the field station submit its own score and everybody at home submitting their own individual scores as well. So how big will we make it this year? Well, one problem we have, we're probably not going to be able to run a 9 alpha operation. That's what we've done the past few years. What 9 alpha means is there's 9 HF stations operating on the field, in the field station, off the power grid. They're using emergency power only. We have a lot of key people who can't participate this year. Also, we have a lot of people who may still elect to operate out of their homes. It's going to take a lot of labor and a lot of equipment setups to do 9 alpha again. So we do have time to talk about this yet, but my proposal is maybe we look at going for no bigger than a 5 alpha operation this year. And a lot of that depends on how many people are willing to come forward to do it. For many years, Okra did that when we were operating on our own. You know, that is before we did our joint operation with the DFMA. And I think it's doable. We can do 2 CW stations, 2 phone stations, and 1 digital station. The 2 CW stations, one of them can work the higher frequencies, 10 through 20. The other one can work 40 and 80. Same can go for the phone stations. We even have some flexibility. The digital station may be able to operate as an accessibility station as well. And perhaps at night we can move to 80 meters if the other 2 phone stations are still busy operating under good conditions with the other bands. There's time to work on this, so we'll be looking for solicitations on that.
W4 SAR speaking.
And thank you for the reminder, Dan, for proper identification. Okay, what rules will affect our operation this year? If we do a hybrid, can we aggregate a field station and a home station? I'm going to verify, but I think it had been done last year amongst other participants. So I think we can get away with doing that. There was one rule we had to be careful of, because that was not waived for the recent field days, and it could still catch us. Well, that rule being that if you work on a field day station and then go somewhere else, for instance, if you work that field station this year and then go home, you can't go home and work our remote field day station. And it works the other way around too. I think this rule was put in place years ago because some of the larger organizations were kind of unfairly padding their scores by having their members do a round robin with the club station. So I think we can't do that. So we have to be careful about that. So for instance, if I go to work at the field station, the 5 alpha station, and I go home, I could still work everybody else. I could still work all the other home stations. I can't work the 5 Alpha station. And we'll verify that as we go forward. Lori, can we move to the next slide, please? Well, to make this all work, we are going to need lots of volunteers. Now, in the past, we had a pretty good setup on field day. A lot of people came out, in particular when we set up in advance for some of the towers and everything. The heart of this is band captains. Band captains are those people who organize each individual station. They supervise the setup of the station, what antennas are being used, what the rig is going to be, computer logging and all that. And then they get operators lined up, and then they capture and submit the scores at the end. So that's the heart of it. That's going to determine if we're going to be a 5 Alpha or something smaller. We need to have enough band captains to man those 5 stations, 6 if we do a VHF, UHF. The other thing we really need is ground crews. We need a lot of logistical support to keep these stations going. So for that, we need both technical ability, but we also need muscle, okay? If we're raising towers, we need people to, enough people to safely raise those towers, get them anchored in place. We need them to help putting up shelters. We need people to help shoot wires up in trees if we're doing wire antennas. For safety's sake, we need a crew to drive in ground rods. And we also need to have flagging of guy lines and ground wires so nobody winds up tripping and injuring themselves. A lot of bodies are needed for that. The other logistics we need are, well, we need people to provide food and drink for the participants. And there's also bonus point stations we set up for displays and other activities. We need people to take part in that. And if we want to run these stations for a full 24 hours, we need lots of operators. As Bruce puts it so well, we need butts and chairs for the full duration. And field day is great because you got the band captains, we have experienced operators here. If you yourself want to try something that you haven't done before, field day is a great place to do it. Come out as an operator. Someone will be by your elbow to help mentor you through it. And if we man all these stations for 24 hours, we will have an awesome score. I'm pretty sure of that. So how can you get involved in supporting field day? Well, for one thing, I'll be posting on the Okra DFMA list. We'll also be listening out at the end of today if we have time. And in the past, we started organizing a spreadsheet for particular teams, for particular stations. We're going to start organizing along those lines, see what kind of stations we will set up, and what we need to make it happen. Like I said, we need lots of bodies. I'm pretty sure Wilson's going to have us play at his house again, but he can't really put in a lot of work on putting up stations like he has in the past. It's pretty demanding. Same goes for me as well. So we need lots of people to help and pull this all together. With that, I'm going to stop and hand it back to Lori, and we'll move on to the next team discussion. So thank you all very much.
Okay, Dave, very good. Thank you very much. I appreciate your update and your intro for field day. And yes, it's going to be different, but it's going to be fun. I think that we can be very comfortable and sure of that one. And please volunteer. Going to need a lot of help this year to make it so. All right, with that, Lori will move over to slide 6 now, and I'm going to turn the control over to Bill or John. I think Bill is picking it up first, but if I'm wrong, then John will pick it up. So this is N1LN turning it either to N8BR or KX4P. Over to you guys.
N1LN in the group. This is N8BR. I'm going to get us off the floor here, Bruce, and talk a little bit about history and how things have changed in the last few years and the effect it's had on certain very important functions of our club. Patty and I came to North Carolina about 6 years ago, and one of the first things that I wanted to do was to get involved with local radio groups. And I had been a ham since 30 years earlier than that. And I was lucky to wander in one night to an Okra meeting. And I was very, very surprised at what a first-class operation it was. And throughout the years, Okra has continued to really provide a myriad of different educational opportunities for its members and do that very well, in my opinion. There's been included workshops and presentations by club members as by non-members. Many have been about building, repairing, using, and installing amateur radio equipment. Others have focused on other interesting things, operating experiences, for example, such as field day, emergency preparedness for local communities, and licensing classes to help members of the club progress through the various amateur ranks. Noteworthy is the fact that many of these activities have been mutually shared with and reciprocally provided by members of DFMA. So we've operated as intertwined, not competing, but cooperating organizations to make these wonderful things happen. Unfortunately, over the past couple of years, some of these activities have been seriously interrupted, and that's certainly by COVID-19. In fact, the traditional ways that we as hams are accustomed to interacting in our wonderful hobby has been forced to change. Club activities take place on Zoom, and this is an entirely new thing. And tonight is a high-end version of that new thing. Field day has become an activity where many of our amateur operators communicate from their homes rather than temporary facilities that are occupied by groups of folks out in the field. And Dave just did a nice job of talking about that. In the face of these and many other changes, our newly elected board of directors at its inaugural meeting decided that our club programs were in need of review and possible revision. And it was informally suggested that this effort would proceed more expeditiously if we had a program committee. And in the last few years, we have not, in fact, had a group that functioned in a dedicated way to get that kind of job done. So Bruce the program committee. And to that end, we're asking the club to take a number of specific actions. And our friend John is going to talk about the proposed things that we'd like to see the program committee work on. John?
KR4UB station, that was in 8BR.
Yeah, good evening. This is John, KX4P, and I've kind of maybe volunteered myself to be on the team for Bill regarding the program committee. I think it's an extremely important committee to have in order to try to bring some fresh blood and life into the programs that we have every month. In fact, we've even discussed not just having a monthly program as part of our group, but maybe even have some spin-off programs at other times of the week if it really becomes that popular. But in order to do that, it looks like what we need to do is three things specifically. So for my part of this presentation, I want to ask the whole membership of the club to consider doing three different things. And anyone in the club can do any of these, I believe. The first one is we want to expand the committee itself. It needs to be more than just Bill and myself. Others of you could really help us in order to coming up with the idea for programs, finding people to give presentations, and to really put together some programs that I think everybody in the club would benefit and appreciate and enjoy. So the first thing to ask the membership to do is please consider maybe joining Bill and myself to be on this committee to make this happen. And you can do that either by contacting Bill, N8BR, or myself, John, KX4P, or Bruce, N1LN, or somebody else on the board of directors. But anyway, if you'd step up to the plate and help us on the committee, it would be much appreciated. The second thing to ask, second of the three things, is to suggest topics and programs. My goodness, we've got a wonderful club of somewhere like 90 to 100 people and a lot of talent, interest, all kinds of varied interests. So the second thing to do is ask for people to suggest programs. So we have kind of made a homemade list. I won't go down the whole list. I'll just highlight a couple of them. But there's a list of maybe 25 different types of programs we think would be of interest to people. They include Field Day, of course, Oxcom. Many of you are familiar with that. Another one would be how to become a volunteer examiner in order to give the license test and promote ham radio. Another one would be DX operating and contesting. Another one, a lot of people are interested in propagation, what the solar flares are all about, the A and the K index and so forth. We've not had a lightning strike recently, but maybe this next week we will. So grounding all of a sudden becomes safety and grounding, big topics, and maybe we could have a program again on that. Antennas are always popular. Nowadays, another subject we'd like to try to do a program on is remote operating, becoming much more popular now. Another one is how to learn the Morse code and become a CW operator. Another one that I'm not as familiar with as I'd like to be is all the repeaters in the area that we have access to as a club, jointly with the DFMA club. But I'm not myself fully aware of all the repeaters and the programs that they represent and the nets that are on those. So maybe we could put together a program on a topic like that. We've had some others that are just out of the scope of ham radio, but of interest to all of us. For example, the recent NASA program that was presented. Maybe somebody knows about the James Webb telescope and could do a real program on that. That would be of interest to everyone. So the second thing to ask you to do, first thing is to join the program committee and help us. The second one is to come up with some program ideas. And the third one is the probably the one that puts the frosting on the cake. The third thing to ask people to do is to step up to the plate and present a program. A lot of talent in our club, and some of you could actually give programs, and we want to make it easy and realistic to do, especially over Zoom. If you're hesitant about doing it, speak to us, and Bill and Bruce and myself and Laurie will talk to you about what we can do to help you do a good presentation for the club using Zoom. So the three things to ask you to do in closing, number one is help us on the committee. Step up to the plate and join the committee and let Bill and myself get your expertise. Second one is to recommend the programs that you'd like to hear. And the third one is to step up to the plate, especially, and offer to present a program. I think we have a program already in the works for March, but after that, we've got an open plate. And so if you'd like to consider giving a program, speak to us and let us know. I think that wraps it up. And I'll turn it back to Bruce and Laurie and ever who else I need to turn it to. But thank you for your time.
KX4P speaking via station KR4UB.
That was KX4P. Dan, you got cut off with a timeout. One caution to the folks that are on Zoom, remember the repeater timeout, and also to remember to ID, because we've got to make sure we stay within the FCC rules. But John, excellent idea, right? Excellent job. You too, Bill, excellent job. And just one comment about the programs. You noted on slide 7 that says create a process and method to ensure programs will be presented to reach all club members. What we're using tonight is part of their process that we want to make sure that we can reach all club members. Whether you're on Zoom, whether you're on UHF, whether you are dialing in over an audio conference, you can hear everybody talking. You can see the slides that we're using. It may have to change some and get more refined, but as the program topics come in, that process will be developed also and modified so that everybody can participate, whether you're in the room together, once we get back to that, whether you're at home, or if you're traveling and you want to call in from wherever you are, you'll be able to join us for that program. Okay, this is N1LN. With that, we'll turn it over to the first person in the group for training. It's something we haven't done and in quite a while. And we kind of joke about it on the Saturday morning Oxcom net. When Mark is net control, he said, well, you won't even ask about training because we probably don't have any. And that's too bad. But we really want to get back to some training and training that people will enjoy. So with that, let me turn it over to Wilson, W4BOH, N1LN. And we're now moving to slide 8.
And unmute.
W4BOH, Wilson in Hillsborough, North Carolina. Occasionally you'll hear old people like me talk about what people know about radio. And it occurred to me that a lot of people are getting their license and buying an HT and pressing the button and not knowing about radio. So when training came up, I said, let's talk about radio and form a team to do that. And there's quite a bit to do. I'll run through it very briefly. I'd like people to know what radio is. What do you mean when you say radio? Which is the transmission of information by electromagnetic waves, of course, but maybe a little bit more deeply into it. Radio started in the end of the 19th century, and it's been very active for over 100 years. And I think people would benefit to know about that and to hit some of the high points along the way. What important things took place to form radio and bring it about so that it functions. Milestones, you might say, and how do they fit into it? Do they want to know about this? Do they care about that history? And what can they do to learn more? The overview of the team is that it will be a group of people, not just me, it can't be just me, who believe that others will benefit from the study of radio if they want to participate. And we will form a group focused on building knowledge based on whatever people have. You can't start at the top, so we will go from where they are and see what we can do with them. 2 minutes, W4BOH. How will we provide this training? We've already touched on programs. Obviously, we can have traditional programs in the meetings. We can have Zoom sessions. I envision a library of URLs, maybe with some commentary. There are vast numbers of things available on the web, but people by and large don't see them or know where they are. So we can organize them and tell people what they're good for and how to find them. I see a program for loaning books. There's a lot in print that's not on the web, and some of us have books. I have books going back into the early 30s, and those who really get interested in radio itself may well be wanting to borrow some of those books. Some of us loan books back and forth already, and it's a really good way to do things, and it's fun to talk about. And some outside get-togethers would be nice. For example, the Raspberry Pi interest group that's already going. There could be others, antennas, propagation, whatever people want to talk about. We can probably find somebody to help because we really have a lot of talent in the club. And somebody mentioned get-togethers and workshops. It could be some hands-on. Do you want to build an antenna? Do you want to explore a regenerative receiver or something like that? We can try to put that together. Not me. I'm not the technical expert on any of these things, but we have some really great talent in the clubs. Next steps. coming up on 2 minutes, for VOH. Like all clubs, like all teams, we'll be soliciting members wherever we can find them. I should mention that I envision quite a bit of material being presented by non-members with whom we're in contact, who are often deeply involved in very interesting and sophisticated things. We need to prepare and deliver technical training. And that means finding the URLs, giving talks, finding books, and making Zoom records. However we want to prepare for posterity the wonderful material we're going to talk about. I mentioned collecting training materials from the web and sharing through in-person gatherings. Last of all, I think, is the dissemination of printed material. We've got to watch out for copyrights, but if there's whatever they call it, what do you call it when the copyright runs out? Material, we can reproduce that and pass it on. That's my stuff. I hope there'll be some questions. W4BOH.
Via KR4UB.
Okay, outstanding. Thank you very much, Wilson. And just as a follow-on, I said I was talking to Dan today on the phone, and we were talking about the meeting tonight, and I just looked in my closet, and I have 6 or 7 books, very basic antenna design, going right up through very detailed antenna design that I would love to be able to make available for people for your library, and I think others will have that also. And also a follow-on to how do we get material out. You will soon see a process that we will be putting together in conjunction with the program team for how we can use the Okra YouTube channel. We can record these trainings. We have to make sure, copyrights are not violated before we start putting things on YouTube, but there will be a process that will keep us legal. And as we do the training, if you attend it, obviously you'll be there. But if you want to try to remember something that was stated or go back, it'll be up on our YouTube channel, and you can go back and look at it again. So Wilson, thank you very much. Well done. With that, I'm going to turn it over to myself, and we're going to move to slide 10. This is N1LN. We just got a hit from Sherry. Sherry would like to volunteer to be on the programs committee. Thank you, Sherry. Bill and John, write it down. And let me break from my slide 10 for a minute. If anybody on Zoom tonight would like to volunteer, and even though they can't open up their mic and speak, they certainly can send out chats. So jump in, send out a group chat, and we will get you added to that committee.
Yeah, and Brian, I have a comment, please.
Yeah, hold your comments to the end if you would, because we have a session at the end of this when we make sure we get through all of these presentations. It'll be open for general comment.
Roger that, I copy.
Okay, so let me turn it back over to myself, and I'm going to do a section on operator training. One of the things you may or may have not heard me say in the past when I'm talking to some of the extremely brilliant individuals we have in this club is I am not an engineer. I'm a builder and I'm an operator, and I like to think I'm a pretty good operator, and I've learned from a lot of fantastic mentors over the past that have helped me with what I'm doing wrong, and so I can do better at it. And I think that over time, that's something that we all want to strive for in this hobby is how can we do better? We got in this hobby for a reason. What can we do to better ourselves and better the hobby? N1LN. So, training. We really haven't had any focused training for several years. If you have been in the club for a while and you roll back, you'll remember we used to have training sessions at the EOC when we could use that building for our meetings. We used to have field events where we would do radio tests and various ARES things. We had some over-the-air training on the Saturday Auxcom net, which used to be called the ARES net. We haven't done any training for a long time. So we need to get back to some of the technical and some of the operator training skills. Another group that you're going to be hearing about in the future is emergency communications, and how do we work potentially with the Orange County Emergency Operations Center. Well, if we want to be able to work with them, we all need to know what to do. We went through training before. We're going to need to go through a lot of that training again because it's changed, but still, we just need to work on our activities. We need to expand our capabilities for on the air. Dave mentioned field day. If we want to retain or maintain our position in field day, and especially if we start changing, the way we're going to be doing it with this new combined group or whatever, some at home, some in the field, I think we're going to need to figure out how do we coordinate all of that. And finally, I've heard this on our Monday 10 meter net. A lot of folks are getting into working DX. The foreign countries, have they got their DXCC? Have they worked 100 countries yet? Have they worked all 50 states? Have they done it on CW? Have they done it on spam risk on my cell phone? We'll let that one ring. Have they done it on RIDI? Have they done it on sideband? So there's a lot of on-the-air operating that we all want to do, and 1LN. And so how do we get there? Let me jump into next steps first, and then I'll give you some suggestions that I would really like to work with some of the new folks to join this team to further develop. We need input from members to create an area of interest or a focus list of what they would like to see operator training done for. What kind of training can we provide? Well, I guessed it right. Got an ID. So we need volunteers to join the operating team to help create that list. If they're skilled in a certain area, maybe to put together a training seminar. I know a lot of you use Logbook of the World. A lot of you use FT8, PSK31. I can't even spell digital, but I would love to go to a training seminar on that to learn how to operate that. So we need you folks to come forward, join the group, voice your interests, and also help us be able to provide that training. Don't feel you need to be a PowerPoint expert or something like that, because we can also help with that. We want to make this successful, so we will provide assistance in putting together the programs following the procedure that Bill and John will be putting together. Okay, so go to slide 11 now. So some areas of interest that I thought of, and this is just by no means an all-inclusive list. This is just my shot at putting together some maybe thought-provoking areas of interest that we might want to talk about. Net control and backup net control training. Right now we have, I think, 3 people, maybe 4, that provide net control services for our Saturday Oxcom net. And they do a great job at it, but they didn't immediately start doing a great job at it. It took them a couple times to get used to it, to get comfortable with it, and now they're doing an excellent job. We need more people to do that. Very soon, you will be seeing a net control training and a backup net control training that will be provided on our Saturday Oxcom net. It'll be done much the same as this one, where there will be slides to follow. So if you join that net on Zoom, or if you join it on UHF and 1LN, you can participate equally, and you will see what's going on and be able to learn from that. And then jump in and give it a shot. We have some suggestions on making that first time a little easier. Logging software. Well, I seem to do an annual N1MM Plus seminar. Well, let's can it and put it on YouTube. I'll be more than happy to do it again this year for Field Day. I don't know N3FJP, but we've got folks in the club that do know that. So we can put together some training there and get ready for Field Day and help Dave out with his planning and prep and help the rest of us out with how successful we are. Remote beacon network and DX clusters. Maybe some of you don't even know what remote beacon network is, but I use it every time I'm on the air. It's a fantastic way for a CW, a digital, or a RIDI station, not sideband yet because it doesn't understand voice, for you to go in and send your call a few times, and it'll tell you how strong your signal is many places in the world. So you can see how your antenna's doing. How do you work on 100 watts? How do you work on a kilowatt? So it's fantastic for testing out your station. DX clusters. If you're chasing your DXCC or your WAS, you can see other people that are on the air, because people say, well, I just worked this station in, pick your favorite location, Antarctica, and his call is KC4AAA, and he's on 14275. You'll see that if you know how to use DX cluster. Contesting. Well, field A. Is it a contest or emergency prep? Yes. North Carolina QSO party is coming up in a few weeks. Is it a contest or is it a special event? Yes. So a lot of these things, whether they're not called contests, you need the same kind of skills. How do you run? Which means how do you call CQ so people call you? How do you search and pounce effectively? You don't need to do both. It's convenient if you do, but how do you do it effectively? N1LN. This one here I think is very important, and it's coming up as a mandatory FCC requirement. The RF exposure testing and compliance. I think we need to do some kind of a training seminar and help everybody in Okra be able to follow that process, get through that certification, and get it completed before the deadline. No options there. As far as I understand anyway, that's mandatory. Well, going back to DX, what is split operation? How do you work split operation? That's when you're listening on a different frequency than the one you're talking on, and that's the way most DX expeditions operate. Very important for me and other people that enjoy working DX, but maybe you'd like to start working DX and want to understand how to optimize working split. Then finally, as I've already mentioned, FT4, FT8, other digital modes, and maybe slow scan TV. Maybe somebody has an interest in that. So let's hear from everybody. So the final bullet on my slide 11, how would you like to get involved in operator training? Feel free to send me an email, voice a comment when we get to that section of the agenda. We really want to get people involved in making suggestions, providing training, and sharing their technical expertise that we have one heck of a lot of in this club with everybody else. With that, N1LN, let the repeater drop. I'll be right back. Okay, my timekeeper just told me I took 8 minutes. Okay, good. All righty, very good. The next topic and the next speaker will be Dan, KR4UB. And just let me give you a little intro here, and Dan can correct me on everything I say wrong, so I'm going to start talking wrong right now. Dan has been maintaining our repeaters for longer than I know, and Dan can tell you that, but he's not an island, but pretty close. I would say he's a very thinly connected peninsula, and he needs some help. And repeaters are changing, and it's something that we all take for granted. It's like, plugging something into the wall outlet, and there's going to be 120 volts there. Well, don't plug it into the dryer outlet, you'll get surprised. But we all take repeaters for granted, and we should not. Things are changing, and with that, Dan needs some help going forward, and our club needs to get to understand the repeater concerns and to put a very good plan together for what we're going to do in the future. And with that, Mr. Dan, it's all yours. KR4UB, N1LN.
Thanks, Bruce. KR4UB. The magic number is about 23 years. I've been the principal coordinator, builder, maintainer, and there has been other people that have helped many times in building the repeaters, but by and large, it's been a small team comprised of dedicated individuals with prerequisite skills, or, and this is a big or and a big opportunity, or if you have a commitment to acquiring those skills. Some of the team members have brought specialized equipment and skills to operate it, either for doing RF measurements, and here I certainly would like to thank graciously Steve W3AHL, whose knowledge is just, I find it almost to be endless and a great skill that's helped us in many, many situations. There's programming work, there's soldering work, there's wiring work to be done, and it is a multiplicity of skills. But, and this is a big but, the turnover rate has really limited this team's stability to ensure that that long-term knowledge and eventual overturning of that responsibility to a next generation to happen. It is a perishable skill, and that means the club is vulnerable if we allow a gap for whatever reason in that team and skill to develop. It could cause a significant impact. The next item so far is the operational readiness, site accessibility, and affordability of repeater sites has changed dramatically. Over time, just the availability of a site, the cost of installation, access to that site, and maintenance expenses that we could be exposed to have dramatically changed, and some of them could be quite dramatic. And that is in part, in the past world, volunteer hams were allowed access to install and maintain the repeaters directly at host sites. And in our history, that has included tower access. And as a result of that, the overall cost was affordable. Now, I'm not going to go into all the things that really need to be talked about regarding this. That will be a future discussion that eventually you'll hear more discussion about that. So what are the next steps and potential solutions? We do need and are making the appeal for volunteers who either have, again, prerequisite skills, or if you have the commitment to develop those skills, that's an appeal for a special kind of volunteer, mainly with the commitment to make that. And it needs to be a long-term commitment, really, for the knowledge transfer to happen, and the ultimate responsibility for the Okra repeaters. You need to keep in mind that the license that this repeater is operating on is held by a repeater trustee. If that license goes away, due to there not being a trustee to hold it, the repeaters go off the air. If that maintenance skill to keep the repeaters on the air. And also another responsibility is the coordination of the frequencies. There's annual reports and things that have to be done to maintain our relationship with SARA, the Southeastern Repeater Association, such that 442150 is recognized as the Okra repeater frequency. Without that coordination, that frequency access is no longer guaranteed. That can go away without a representative fulfilling that requirement. In terms of, we've talked about the training and the commitment to develop the skills. What I'm really saying here is a come and go participation of volunteers is not going to solve that problem. And I can't, the passing of Nick, KA1HPM, was one of our valued friends and trusted members of the repeater committee. We can lose that skill, to what seems all of a sudden we hear about it and it's gone. And it would be better if the club got itself better positioned such that there can be an orderly turnover and someone picking up those new skills and picking up the responsibilities for the things that have to be done to keep these repeaters legal and to keep them coordinated and to keep them on the air. In terms of the cost and access issues, that will be, again, this could be a very lengthy topic, which I'm not going to go into tonight. That will be a continuing discussion, and we'll roll in to try to develop some plans to address some of those issues. And let's just take, for example, that all of a sudden we get notified that we're going to lose one of our repeater sites. What is the plan B that makes sense? Do we even have an option as to where that repeater could go? Would it make sense from the coverage that the repeater was providing at its existing location? Is there a site available that could somehow continue to cover that coverage, or at least some part of it? So we're going to be talking about some methodical approaches to try to have answers to those types of questions. And with that, back to Bruce, N1LN, KR4UB.
Okay, Dan, thank you very much. And let me just add on to a couple things that Dan has said here. This is N1LN. Dan has given you a partial list of what he does to keep our repeater on the air. I'm not saying that to scare somebody that might be interested in joining the team, rather to encourage somebody to join the team, because this is a very exciting and I think fulfilling group to be part of. And you know, Dan may have been viewed by club members as kind of that wall outlet. You know, Dan is always going to be here. We're always going to have our repeater running. We're always going to have the location at the top of the WUNC tower. And you know, when I key my microphone Saturday morning and the push to talk works, the repeater's going to work. We need to recognize how fortunate we have been for Dan's commitment to this club and the others, as he has mentioned, to keep this repeater on the air for this club. We need some folks to help out. Let me drop it. You know, one thing you noticed tonight, probably, because we're done with our team presentations. We got a few more things to do, obviously, and then we'll get to the open forum so all the members can speak. But if you know us, Dave is the young guy on the group. Well, actually, no, probably Lori's the young lady on the group. But, you know, Wilson, Bill, John, me, you know, we are all over 70, pushing 80. We need some of these 20, 30, 40, 50 something, these young guys that are 50, these young ladies that are 50, you know, heck, that's 20 more years than I'm 72, you know, so if you're 50, don't think you're old. You got 22 years to catch up to me. We need some of you folks jumping in to keep this club going. All of the committees tonight, all of the teams, I think are going to be exciting. They may all sound like they all have their own individual focus. Well, they do. But you know what? All of those focuses are linked. Dave is not going to be successful at field day unless we have the technical training to put up the antennas and build them, unless we have the operational training to use them, unless we have a program methodology to be able to present the training, coordinate the project management to get field day going, and the repeater to hold some of that stuff on. So these are not independent. These are all mutually inclusive. So folks, please sign up, join, and be active in your club. It is your club. Okay, let me drop it here. N1LN. Okay, it's 8:30. We're pretty much right on schedule. So what I'd like to do now is go back to a more normal type of a club. We can go to slide 14. And where we are right now is officer reports. And we're going to go through the 4 officers. And Jack, KM4MBG, since you're here, I did not hear Lenore check in. I will call on you also down toward the end of the officer reports if you want to give us any update on DFMA, so you can think about your thoughts there. First of all, let me go to Bill. Over to you, Bill, for your reports. N8BR, N1LN.
N1LN in the group. This is N8BR. Thanks, Bruce. This is really not a formal report, but what I want to do very shortly, like before the next membership meeting, is to discuss and to lay out a plan for the Christmas party. And I realize that this may be out of place this early in the year, but I at least want to get the machinery put together and pack it in the right boxes so that it can be taken out and fully functional at the time that it's needed a few months down the road. That's all I have. This is N8BR.
Okay, thank you, Bill. And I think you're going to hear something interesting, and it's not going to be just Christmas party, because there's a team that you will hear about soon that will, and I'm going to give away the team name, okay? It's going to be called Events Planning. Now, that hopefully will sound like something new and different, because it is. The Christmas party is an event. We will have other events. With that, let me turn it over to Lori, and we see if she's got anything as secretary. N1YXU, N1LN.
This is N1YXU. Just a quick comment, more question than comment, I think, and it's really asking input from everyone in the OKRA membership. And that is that if you have any kind of feedback, especially any constructive changes that you might want to propose with the way that meeting minutes are being sent out, any other communications that you've seen coming from the board from me, I would really appreciate some feedback. I am not looking for, this sounds odd, feedback. It's more if there's things that could be done to me. So I would appreciate that. And that's really it. Let me turn this back over to Bruce and N1LN.
Okay, very good. Yeah, and I think that's true with what I'm going to be asking for later too. Is, you know, I would like to hear some positive feedback with, yeah, this part of the meeting went well, but this could be changed to do better. So think about that. Okay, with that, let's go over to Dan and see what the treasurer's doing. KR4UB, and in addition to the repeater, KR4UB and N1LN.
N1LN, the group KR4UB. Well, I give the treasurer's report, which is really a dues or membership status report. And one of the things I started doing, I don't know, a year or so back, is taking our fixed expenses, and actually this is an idea that KU4GC deserves credit for, that is done in DFMA for a long time, is, you know, we talk about membership dues and what our balance is. Just to talk about those in numbers is kind of, you need a measuring stick to know, are we doing okay or not? So I've computed, based on our fixed expenses, how many members do we need in the club just to cover our annual expenses? And that number, which I need to revise because the cost of renting a post office box has just gone up. It continues to be escalating every year. We do need to look for a less expensive alternative, but normally I would say we need 85 dues payments to cover our fixed expenses. Just based on the post office box rental, I need to move that number up to 87. As of this month, we do have 92 members whose dues are current, 7 need to renew, and then another 4 are expiring. And another metric that I track is how many new members have we gained over the past 12 months. We do see quite a bit of turnover in membership because people come and go, especially in this community with jobs, academics, whatever people do move in and out of the area, and various other things cause people to no longer be a member of the club. For new member dues, I've calculated things like our website, which, especially during COVID, we have gotten a lot of new members who have initially contacted us through our visibility on the website. And the other tool that has helped keep us together during this pandemic is what we're doing tonight is Zoom. Those have costs that we have to cover. It takes 22 new members joining us on an annual basis to cover the cost of those 2 expenses. And so far, over the last 12 months, we're currently standing at 18 new members having joined. 5 of those are newly licensed. But in this being toward the end of the year, the number of expirations we've seen is a bit high. That's 24 memberships have expired over the past 12 months. So, you know, the other thing I might point out is the dues are still the same as it was when this club was founded back in 1997, I believe it is. That $12 is worth, in today's money, $7. Back to Net, KR4UB.
Thanks, Dan. Appreciate it. And as always, thanks for keeping track of the books and keeping the repeater going so we can hear how the books are doing. Just so all of you know about dues status, Lori and I are two of those people that need to renew. So I already told Dan I'd be sending him a check. So that 7 can go down to 5. So we'll make sure that we send our dues in. With that, let me turn it over to Jack and see if we have any DFMA input that Jack would like to make. KM4MBG, N1LN. Over to you, Jack.
Thanks, Bruce, for taking time out of your busy meeting to allow perspective from the DFMA. KM4MBG here. So as far as calendar events go, tomorrow night is the regularly scheduled DFMA board meeting, which will take place online. I think Lenore has already sent out to the mailing list the information about that. But this is really where all the doings happen for the DFMA. And so certainly we welcome anyone who'd like to participate. But that's where all the business gets taken care of. I think some interesting agenda items is what are we going to do the DFMA for our club meeting in March. I think all of us are trying to read the tea leaves for the pandemic, but if you have special insight, certainly participating in the board meeting is where to do it. I know a lot of you are members of the DFMA, so I guess we'd like to thank you for that. But if you're not, you're welcome to join, but you're still welcome to participate in our events even if you're not a member. And those include our nets. So the DFMA has 2 nets per week on Wednesday night at 8:30 on our 6-meter repeater, and on Thursday night at 8 p.m. on one of our 2-meter repeaters. And so I think as far as we're excited to do the collaboration between the clubs and figure out where we can complement each other and where we can differentiate ourselves. And that includes backing each other up on emergency preparedness and band planning for that sort of thing. And so getting on the nets is a great way to ready yourself to use both the OCRA and DFMA repeaters before an event. So we'd be glad to have you, and thanks for the opportunity, Bruce. N1LN in the group, KM4MBG.
Okay, thanks very much, Jack. I'm not going to make any comments right now. I'll do that when we're doing our closing and checkout. I want to save the time for open discussion. So with that, let me first go to anybody that checked in on the repeater, because we really only have 3 people that are checked in on the repeater tonight, unless others have joined us. But does anybody on the repeater have any comments that they would like to make? If so, give me your call sign, please.
Kilo India 4 Romeo Alpha November.
Okay, Bill, over to you. KI4RAN N1LN.
N1LN. I have a couple of suggestions. We need to consider a problem, and that is with the internet connection going to all of us on the internet and the cameras system. That needs to be evaluated and find out why we didn't all get connected properly. Another one is the events. Maybe my mother may have some suggestions on, and this is a biggie, blind coordinating. How do we coordinate all of this reading materials for people that are disabled that can't read because they're legally blind, like myself? I don't read normal print. The normal print that you guys read, I don't read. And I'm going to tell you something, guys, ladies and gentlemen. Let me let it break. You guys, we may not realize this, but here's another serious problem we've got in this club. We've got a lot of the older generation getting older. Their vision is going downhill. What are we going to do? Well, we've got books on tape. I've got them here now. That I haven't heard suggested. That is an option. I don't know whether anybody had even thought about that. Books on tape so people could hear what's being given out over some of these meetings. But both my parents have over 40 years of experience working with me over the past 40 years. So they have a lot of experience with disabilities and knowing how to handle disabilities. Joe's worked with me for a while. So you guys, we need to work together on this as far as communications with email and Zoom and all of this. We got to work together. Boy, this camaraderie, but we've got some issues that need to be worked out. KI4RAN, back to you, Net Control.
Info, KR4UB.
Super point on coordinating communications for the visually impaired. I will take an action item. We used to do some work with the handy hams, not in Okra, but when we lived in Texas at the club we belonged to down there. So Lori and I can take an action item to get in touch with the handy hams to get some suggestions on being able to coordinate our distribution stuff for the blind. We do have at least one friend that is completely blind, and I know how she handles all of her communications with specialized computer software. And you would actually, if you met her, you would never know she's blind because she paints. She's just an amazing lady. But anyway, I won't go down that track. Doug's a rat hole for me. But I will take the action item for handy hams. Okay. Anybody else on UHF before we go to Zoom?
Info, KR4UB.
Go, Dan.
I would just like to suggest, first of all, the person who taught me how to build repeaters and how to make them sound really good, high audio quality, he is blind. What he has been able to do is remarkable. But one thing I would immediate suggestion that Bill, your mother, or Joe help you with is screen reader software, where anything that's on your repeater, it will read it to you with a voice, and day in and day out, that's how this individual is been doing things since childhood. KR4UB.
KR4UB, I do have that software in the computer. So, but this is stuff that you guys that are getting older need to start looking at and considering. I've got it. It's just how do we do it with Zoom software? And I've had it working with medical professionals perfectly. I just don't know where the glitch is within the club and Zoom. I just don't understand it. KI4RAN.
Okay, I'll still take that action item, but good point, Dan, about Danny also with him being blind. Okay, let me go to Zoom, to the logins on Zoom. Any comments there before we get ready for closing comments here? We got about 10 minutes left.
KU4GC.
I have one comment from Adriano. He wants to thank everybody who worked on setting up the Zoom meeting.
Sorry.
And his comment just disappeared. But anyway, I think he gave us an atta person for what we've done. So thank you very much, Adriano. And somebody wants to talk. I can see Dan holding the mic up. Go ahead.
KU4GC. D, go ahead.
Yeah, I just minor technicality. When Dave was giving credit for the joint operation between Okra and FMA for field day, I'd love to take the credit for that, but I was in fact skeptical. But Wilson is the one who proposed that and pulled it through, and I'm very glad he did. So he deserves the credit. KU4GC.
Okay, D, very good. Appreciate that. I'm sure Wilson does also, but I don't want your past activities and support for our numerous field day operations to go unrecognized. You guys and MK also have just, you guys have done a fantastic job for as many years as Lori and I have been part of the club. So you keep the attaboy and attaperson for you too. Okay, anybody else on Zoom, please?
Go ahead, Wilson. Go ahead.
W4BOH.
W4BOH.
Yeah, I think I'm here. I think we see overlap among several of those teams, how they might relate to training. You know, repeater goes into training and all that sort of stuff. And I'm looking forward to that event committee. That's going to be fun. Darn, senior moment. There was one more thing. I'll come back to it. Sorry. W4BOH.
Not a problem. Anybody else on Zoom would like to make any comments? N1LN. Mr. Bill.
Yeah, I just have a question. One of my duties is, I guess, as I see it in writing, is to maintain a liaison with the DFMA, and I've managed to miss, I think, 2 meetings now. And that's a habit that I'm going to stop immediately. But what I'm wondering is part of that to attend your executive committee meeting? I'm not sure of that, and I just got an announcement about it tonight on my email. Is that part of that job description for me?
N8BR.
And this is N8BR.
Not quite sure who you're asking, Bill, whether you're asking me or you're asking Jack, but let me grab the control here. I think that's something that between you and myself and Lenore and Jack, I think we can probably work that out. For sure, if you know, at least this is off the top of my head with not much thought, the way I tend to do things occasionally. At a minimum, you know, we can get copied on the minutes, and the minutes might dictate whether we need to go to the next meeting. Can't quite go from the agenda because the line item 1 in the agenda is discussing the minutes, and I don't know whether we got those. But that's something that I think between the 4 of us, we can just have a quick conversation and work it out. But I think we might have it worked out because D has his hand. KU4GC on 1LN.
Just wanted to say, and since I'm aware of what's going on, since you're liaison, we put you on the board mailing list. You're welcome, and so are any members, to attend any of our meetings, but we put you on it. You should be getting minutes and things like that, or there's some occasionally. It's up to you and or Okra policy how far you want to take it. You don't have the obligation of a board member. I think when you join the board, I think you're obligated to attend meetings with obvious exceptions, but we would welcome you, and that's the basic idea. And similarly, Jack is the DFMA's liaison to the Okra club, and I don't know if he's on any mailing lists or needs to be, but that's up to Okra. So that's my 2 cents. Sort of jump in and assume I'm speaking for anybody but myself, but maybe I am. This is KU4GC.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Jack.
Yeah, well, I don't know why everyone's being so beating around the bush, but yeah, if Bill, if you have the time, I think it would be helpful if you were to come. So, of course, if not, then we can talk offline.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Jack. Very good. And Wilson's waving. He thought he had his senior moment clear up. W4BOH on 1LN.
Well, not having anything to do with the problem, I think asking Bill to travel to Durham for meetings is quite a lot. Nice if he wants to, but boy, it's a lot. But more importantly, I want to ask Laurie, We're recording. Maybe there can be an announcement on the groups IO and places like that. Let's try to get some people, the ones we really want to reach, to watch this recording, which I think would be very valuable if we can get them to do so. I don't know how we can, but try to drive them over there if possible. W4BOH.
Okay, so yeah, what we will do is make sure that we, well, the distribution for the availability of these minutes on YouTube will be sent out to the group's IO reflector, which I believe is, it's an OKRA/DFMA reflector. So everybody that's signed up for that will be receiving it, and they're going to be public. There's not going to be any ID and password to view the minutes from any of the meetings, nor the training, which is why we need to make sure that we keep everything that goes out there legal from the standpoint of copyrights and things like that. So there will be a review and approval process before anything gets posted. But everything will be available, and hopefully that will respond to your suggestion there, Wilson. Okay, we have 4 minutes, and we're doing great, folks. I really appreciate it. With that, and if there's no more comments, we'll do a quick 3-person checkout on the repeater, and then we'll go to Zoom, and I can just assume that everybody on Zoom will check out because I've got 17 names. I got Sherry that just checked in and Jeremy that came in also after we started the meeting, so I think I caught everybody. With that, any last comments before we close the net and check out?
Yeah, I've got one comment, and that is if somebody wants to be a member of the team, how do we do that?
NA4VY.
Yeah, Paul, you got jumped on. Somebody jumped on that did not ID. Go back to you, Paul, N2XZF, N1LN.
Sit in your laptop and talk to us. N2XZF, clear. And you can check me out on the checkout, too.
Yeah, sorry, Paul. I think I doubled with you, too. When you started talking, somebody else keyed up that did not ID. So could you quickly repeat what you said there? We missed it all. Something about a laptop, and then I don't know what else.
Well, the first part of it was that, Bill, you don't have to go anywhere. You can join the board meeting on your laptop. It is a virtual meeting, and I think it's a big blue button. This is N2XZF, and you can check me out.
Got it. Thanks, Paul. Appreciate it. Okay, so let's go up to the top for checkouts. KI4RAN.
One comment.
Go, Dan.
I think I was the one that accidentally stepped on somebody. Dave, NA4VY had a comment. Go ahead, Dave, via Zoom.
Yeah, I mean, the team members have made their presentation, and it looks like they would like to have help. But if we're interested, how do we sign up?
NA4VY, KR4UB.
Okay, Dave, very good. Well, Sherry sent a chat that said she wanted to join. Feel free to either send me an email or to the team lead that was in the meeting distribution of who gave the presentation that you'd be interested. And we would love to have you join one or two or all. So everybody that would like to join, again, I don't want to put a single communication method in place. We really want to hear from you. We don't want to hear in any specific way. So give one of us a phone call, send us an email, send us in chat, get me on the repeater, tell me on Monday Night Net, any way possible. Just get to us.
Roger, Dodger.
Thanks, Dave. KR4UB.
Tonight. Hey, Dan, I got on. Go ahead. I saw your red light blinking when I was talking.
Just thanking Dave for his comment and good answer. Anybody? I'm probably the oldest rat in the barn, so if it's an area that I'm involved in, feel free to call, email, whatever. Smoke signals, I'm game. KR4UB.
Okay. With that, let's, okay, Bill already checked out. KM4MBG.
KM4MBG, secure.
And Paul already checked out. With that, I would like to thank everybody for joining us tonight. I'm really excited about the opportunity here that we've got ahead of us. I'm really looking toward a fun year that we can all have together as we progress through the year. And at some time during the year, I'm really looking forward to getting back to in-person meetings. I think that will make the programs that we're going to see all that more exciting and interesting, but we still need a way to be able to do multimedia, kind of multi-distribution capability, because everybody can't make the meeting. So we'll have that stuff available. We will make it work. With that, I'm going to close down the net. It's 9 o'clock and 19 seconds. So I'm going to jump back to Zoom. Thank you all, and look forward to the meeting minutes coming out. This is N1LN.